Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start another session on the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, written by Mark Manson. And I'm recording an audiobook with the caption Street Genius. So these are not my words, these are the words of author Mark Manson. There we go. My first girlfriend dumped me in spectacular fashion. She was cheating on me with her teacher. It was awesome. And by awesome, I mean it felt like getting punched in the stomach about 253 times. To make things worse, when I confronted her about it, she promptly left me for him. 3 years together down the toilet, just like that. I was miserable for months afterwards. That was to be expected, but I also held her responsible for my misery. It take it from me didn't get me very far. It just made the misery worse. See, I couldn't control her, no matter how many times I called her, or screamed at her, or begged her to take me back, or made surprise visit to her place, or did other creepy and irrational ex-boyfriend things. I could never control her emotions, her actions. Ultimately, while she was to blame for how I felt, she was never responsible for how I felt. I was. At some point, after enough tears and alcohol, my thinking began to shift, and I began to understand that although she had done something horrible to me, and she could be blamed for that, it was now my own responsibility to make myself happy again. She was never going to pop up and fix things for me. I had to fix them for myself. When I took that approach, a few things happened. First, I began to improve myself. I started exercising and spending more time with my friends whom I had been neglecting. I started deliberately meeting new people. I took a big study abroad trip and did some volunteer work, and slowly I started to feel better. And now I was taking responsibility for my own emotions, and by doing so, I was choosing better values, values aimed at taking care of myself, learning to feel better about myself rather than aimed at getting her to fix what she had broken. By the way, this whole holding her responsible for my emotions thing is probably part of why she left in the first place. More on that in a couple of chapters. Then, about a year later, something funny began to happen. As I looked back on our relationship, I started to notice problems I had never noticed before, problems that I was to blame for and that I could have done something to solve. I realized that it was likely that I hadn't been a great boyfriend and that people don't just magically cheat on somebody they've been with unless they are unhappy for some reason. I'm not saying that this excused what X did, not at all, but recognizing my mistake helped me realize that I perhaps hadn't been the innocent victim I believed myself to be, that I had a role to play in enabling the shitty relationship to continue for as long as I did, for as long as it did. After all, people who date each other tend to have similar values, and if I dated someone with shitty values for that long, what did that say about me? My values? I learned the hard way that if the people in your relationships are selfish and doing hurtful things, it's likely you are too. You just don't realize it. In hindsight, I was able to look back and see warning signs of my ex-girlfriend's character, signs I had chosen to ignore and brush off when I was with her. That was my fault. I could look back and see that I hadn't exactly been the boyfriend of year to her. Either, in fact, I had often been cold or arrogant towards her. Other signs I took for granted and blew her off and hurt her. These things were my fault too.